Today, the Supreme Court is considering one of its biggest criminal cases of the new term.
It will decide whether thousands of people who were sentenced as kids or teens for life in prison could get their sentences reduced. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid joins us from Washington. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning.
So didn't the court already decide to ban mandatory life sentences for juveniles in 2012?
Yes, back in 2012, the court said that mandatory life sentences for juveniles who committed murder should be banned. Now, they're not completely prevented. In some specific circumstances, it is possible to sentence them to a mandatory life sentence, but for the most part, they're banned. However, the case they're going to hear today comes from a man in Louisiana. It was up to the states to decide whether or not to apply that 2012 decision retroactively, so to people who were sentenced before 2012. And Henry Montgomery in Louisiana was sentenced over 40 years ago to life in prison for a murder that he committed, and he sought relief after the 2012 decision. He said, all right, I can have my sentence reduced. The state of Louisiana said not so fast. They decided not to apply this decision to people like him, and that's how they wound up before the court today.
Paul, the court has taken on several juvenile justice cases in the past few years. Is it likely in this case that they'll adopt a progressive approach to juvenile justice?
Well, you're right, Vlad. Over the past decade, the court has taken up several cases on juvenile justice, and they've made many decisions sort of coming more to this progressive philosophy that juveniles should be treated differently than adult defendants. Now, as someone who used to prosecute juvenile defendants, I can tell you that they are different. But what is not different is the impact that, and again, these are all having to do with murder cases here today, the impact that these crimes have on victims. It doesn't matter if your father or your sister is murdered by a 13-year-old or a 43-year-old. And that is the argument of the state of Louisiana, that it's impractical to go and change sentences that were issued decades ago, and it is ultimately unfair to victims.
So, Paula, lawyers representing some of these juveniles have used the argument one size fits all doesn't fit to point out this penalty of life sentence isn't really justice. How many people are potentially impacted?
Well, Meg, up to 2,000 people could potentially get relief if the Supreme Court decides that their 2012 decision must be applied retroactively in all states. Now, the court could also decide that they don't have the authority to tell the state of Louisiana to apply this retroactively. So there's two questions here before the court, and they've sort of designed for themselves a way out. But for those 2,000 people, whatever they decide will mean the difference between freedom or potentially dying in prison.
All right, Paula Reid for us in Washington. Thank you.